Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We come to you virtually from Seattle and the entire Pacific Northwest. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, you found yourself in the right spot. This is it. This is where we say street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Weedin, and I'm joined by my co-host and today guest, Craig Swanson. What we're doing is we're doing another recording. I've still got some challenges with my iMac being in the Apple hospital. And so with using my iPad, I don't feel as comfortable live streaming. So what you're doing is you're getting this later on, which is fine. Hopefully Craig will get back to live streaming very soon. I thought it would be great to have Craig on today. I'm not going to do an official bio for Craig because you should all know and love him already. And we're going to talk a little bit about what he's doing these days in just a few minutes. But we're going to talk about something that I think everybody, especially who's in business, should be starting to get geared up for if they haven't already, and that's artificial intelligence, AI. So we're going to have, between him and I, we're going to have some kind of a stream of consciousness, I guess we could say, Craig, a stream of consciousness about AI. And I hope that it's something that will be beneficial to all of our listeners. Before we do that, let me remind everybody that we're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube, and Craig, I didn't forget Overcast. You can say that we are ubiquitous. And now open for business, our patron membership, the Shrimp Peelers, offering exclusive content to grow your business and enrich your life. You'll find access on our website at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. All right. Hey, Craig, welcome back, not only as co-host, but as guest today. How are you doing?
I am doing really well, Dan. It's a really fun time of life for me right now. But yeah, how are you doing?
Well, now I have some coffee and food in me.
Yeah.
As I'm going to explain to you, I'm doing much better than I was probably about an hour ago. See, Craig, every year I am religious about getting an annual physical. I've reached the point of my life after I got into my 50s that I'm doing an annual physical. I'm doing labs. I'm gonna make sure everything is working well. So I had the physical, went in to go do my labs today. I was scheduled, Craig, at 9:15 this in the morning. Okay. And as we're going to talk about, there's some great tools out there technology wise to help us. In fact, the lab sent me a way to check in, says, don't get out of your car, check in on the app just here. Once you're in, we'll text you and then we'll come in and we'll take care of you. So I got there a little bit early, checked in. I got my notification. You're checked in. We're going to text you. So there I sit in my car answering LinkedIn messages and things like that. And I saw some people milling around and then walking away and looking upset and disgusted. And I thought, they're not following the rules, Craig. They're not dealing with technology correctly. They're not following the rules. And then all of a sudden it's 9:35 and I'm 20 minutes late. It's like, this is ridiculous. So I got out of my car and it turns out I'm the dumb one. There was nobody in the office, Craig. Apparently they've got some staffing shortages and they just didn't open. So I spent all morning and if people don't know, I can get hangry in the morning if I don't have my coffee and my breakfast. So I was a little bit sideways about it. And I thought, it's ideal. We're going to talk about AI and technology. Technology works brilliantly until it doesn't. And it usually doesn't work brilliantly because there's a human aspect to it. So no matter where we go with artificial intelligence, there needs to be a human that is able to send out text or something that says, hey, don't come in today. We're short of staff. I would have been fine with that. I would have had my coffee and my breakfast, and I've gone on with life instead of sitting in a parking lot for 45 minutes. So, Craig, that's my story. You asked how I was. That's how I am. But I think it's a great jumping off point to say, hey, in essence, there was some AI checking me in, and the AI did a great job. But somewhere along the line, the human on the back end didn't finish the deal.
By the way, I've been there. So you, especially, and so I think it was a blood draw, and we needed to like get the blood sugar. So as you're saying, you're hungry because I can't eat anything before, and there's this like little sheet of paper taped to the window saying, "I'm sorry, staff didn't come in." Clearly, a staff member came in to tape that little note up,
Right.
but then like promptly left. I don't know what they're doing. So I've been there, and it sounds like that technology of the sheet of paper on the window with tape did not match up with the technology that was texting you in your car, telling you that they knew you were there and like waiting to have someone bring you into the meeting or the
And you know
appointment.
what? This is, and let's just talk about artificial intelligence a little bit. I
Mhm.
think people are familiar, but it really, and it, just like human relations, it comes down to communication in so many places. Is that
Mhm.
AI communicating with you? You and I talked on one of the shrimp peeler episodes
Mhm.
about Chat GPT a lot. I'm having regular conversations with Chat GPT that actually calls me by name
Mhm.
and knows what I want. We're having all of these dialogues. Let's talk. Actually, I want to do something first. I want
Yeah.
to talk about the emergence. I'm just going to say, I know we've had
Mhm.
AI before, we just didn't think of it that way, but the emergence of AI and what you are doing, because you're doing something a little bit unique here. Why don't you share with everybody the world of Craig Swanson as it sits today?
Well, okay. So the short version is, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 18. So I started my first business when I was 18. I during the pandemic and during everything else, I actually sold about three of my portfolio of businesses, and so I'm what I'm calling on an entrepreneurial sabbatical right now. I don't have any large businesses that I'm growing. And I've been spending the last year, probably year and a half, starting to do a deep dive into what entrepreneurship looks like with the emergence of AI, what AI tools can and can't do, and kind of like trying to get my own arms around what business building and value looks like in this emerging world of AI. So something I've been thinking about a lot. It's something I'm really fascinated with. I'm doing a lot of developing and starting to like narrow in a little bit on kind of like what's attracting me, what I'm really curious about in this space. Um, and I've got some thoughts. But anyway, so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm on an entrepreneurial sabbatical, which is kind of like I'm just following my interest and my hobbies, and I'm
Right.
pretty sure business is going to emerge out of it, but I'm not really putting the pressure on right now.
Well, before we dive in more into AI, I think that
Mhm.
there's a great I think that there's something really interesting about what you said.
Mhm.
I think in everybody's work life, you've heard the constant over the course of decades of, oh, gotta go nose to the grindstone and gotta go to work, and people who sometimes just don't like their jobs. What you've done is you said, okay, I'm in a position where I can take a sabbatical to the point to figure out what it is I like, and from that passion, from that interest, business will become manifest. I don't know what it is now, but it will become manifest. Now you're in a position that you can do that, and not everybody is. But the reality is that entrepreneurialism should always be about the opposite of dread, right? It should be. It
In a
should be
perfect in a perfect world, I don't know if it is, but in a
in
perfect
a
world, that's what we're
perfect
shooting
world.
for.
But so I'm happy for you in that.
Mhm.
Tell me so far what has fascinated you about AI, and I want to be really specific because I know that AI has lived before. We just didn't think
Mhm.
of it that way. But let's talk about Chat GPT, Bard, all of these other things that are coming out that we really now are starting to recognize as AI. What's fascinated you most?
Well, okay. So a lot of my career has been around communication of different ways. So creating online content, podcasts, blogs, writing, marketing, a lot of communication. And the term AI is this really broad, encompassing idea. But really, what is exciting me and what's kind of come up in the last couple of years, and what everyone is seeing with ChatGPT, is not kind of AI as a whole, but specifically it's a large language model. That's a LLM. These are the things we talk about. And so what ChatGPT is particularly good at, that is really shocking and amazing to people, is really good at communicating and basically putting things together verbally that that we don't necessarily assume AI can do. So like there's a lot of things you're talking about, like the system that was in play that was texting you about showing up at a meeting, all that. There's a lot of machine learning, a lot of machine intelligence out there that does different things. And like they can do stock analysis and they can do meeting scheduling and all these things. But the thing that's really shifted over in the last year that's really fascinating to me is having computers starting to acquire this ability to communicate in English or in multiple languages, but basically be able to communicate in complete complex thoughts that are surprisingly organized and human-like. And that's really like the remarkable thing for me.
So it begs the question. I mean, I remember watching Will Smith and I, Robot back in the day, and I'll go back into the 80s and start talking about Arnold and Terminator and all of that. Is there a fear, or should there at least be a concern about where AI goes?
I think there is I think it's a realistic thing for everybody to take a moment to think about what they bring to the world and where their place is, because there's a lot of transition that's about to happen in the world, a lot of kind of rewriting of jobs, and that's always a really painful process for people that have had some recipe or something that's worked in their life. Honestly, one of the reasons I'm on this entrepreneurial sabbatical is for the last decade and a half, I have been creating online content, and the world of creating online content is shifting so rapidly and so quickly that I don't think the businesses that I've built and grown over the last decade would be relevant if I were to approach them in exactly the same way today. So you could also say that like the thing that I built my career on for the last decade and a half, I think is coming to an end. There's a new thing.
Yeah, and actually I've had a little bit of a manifestation of that in my own world. And I'm really trying to come to a reckoning of what that means for me. And I don't look at it in a negative way. I look at it as an opportunity. The thing that's probably harder for me, and maybe somebody else is feeling the same way, is I don't know that I truly understand what's coming. I think in the past you can say, oh, I have a pretty good educated guess of this is what's going to happen down the line. I think the uncertainty and the volatility of technology makes it harder to kind of do that reckoning. I mean, you're in the sabbatical, you're thinking, and all of a sudden each day something new might pop up. How do you go about managing that part of it, Craig?
I mean, one thing is to just recognize we're in a point of change. So, and I think when technology changes, it's really fun to go back and look at YouTube clips from futurists basically envisioning the future. And a lot of times futurists can envision like big changes, but then they really miss these small things. I mean, the existence of social media on Star Trek, which had all these things that were connected. Everyone's walking around with things that look like iPads, and they had things that look like the first phones, and all of these things that seem like they are predicting the future. But no one really understood the idea of like having networked computers back then, or having a network that communicates between different things. Everyone was walking around with one brick or pad and handing it to another person, not trading information back and forth. And so there are so many things that we can't anticipate that we often get wrong that sometimes emerge on its own. If you think about it, when the web was first coming out in 2000, so we had this big downturn where there was a huge amount of investing into the World Wide Web in the late 90s. So if you were selling dog food online with a .com, you were fundable. There are all these companies that were basically taking huge amounts of money in the late 90s, and then it all came to this big collapse at the end of 2000. Like between 2000 and 2021, the stock market was wiped out for all the speculation in the .com bubble in Seattle. I don't know if you were in Seattle, Dan.
I was.
Buildings were empty. I remember I could pick up furniture from web startups just like super cheap. It was a really crazy time. I think we are looking at something like that inflection wise coming at us with AI. I'm not saying that it's going to necessarily look the same or but feel the same, but something like that's coming. And if you think about what it was, if you think about what in 2000, we didn't have Google then. We didn't have the information. We didn't have like who knew that we wouldn't need to go to a library? Like I think even by then I was still like looking information up at the library on sheets of paper in like boxes of card decks.
Well, and the amazing thing is libraries still exist. They just exist differently. And
Hmm.
I think to your point, think about the transition point that I think is coming with
Hmm.
jobs. And I think that's
Yeah.
what scares a lot of people is they're saying, well, AI is going to take my job. And that very well may be true. But just as we pointed out in my little story, humans still drive this. And I
Yep.
think what it's really saying is we humans now have a change. And it started with the Industrial Revolution and it
Mhm.
went all the way through the 21st century where there was always something new that was eliminating something else. But it didn't mean that there weren't jobs and opportunities there. And so what I think it's really saying is that we are in an age, or we're coming into an age where you have to be able to have the skill,
Mhm.
the creativity, the curiosity, because you're going to be getting paid for what you know and what you're able to transfer and what you're able to
Mhm.
do utilizing where we are today.
Yeah. I think there's a saying, you're not going to be competing with AI. So none of us are going to be put out of a job with AI. What's going to happen is we're going to be put out of a job with another human being leveraging AI to do their job so much faster and so much stronger.
You're exactly right, and that's a great point for us to jump off
Mhm.
and pay the bills. Everyone, of
Mhm.
course, we're with Craig Swanson today. He's our co-host and guest, and we're talking AI. When we come back, I'm going to throw some hotter knots out at Craig, and we'll see. We'll put him on the proverbial hot seat. But before we do that, let's hear from our corporate sponsor for today. EO Accelerator is a coaching program for Seattle area business owners who want to grow their existing small business beyond $1 million in annual revenue. As a small business owner, you face new challenges every day, whether it's deciding how you're going to fill a rush of new orders, puzzling out where to find new customers, or sweating about making payroll. Do you find yourself wishing you had an instruction manual for your business? Well, at EO Accelerator, our mission is to empower entrepreneurs with the tools, accountability, and community to aggressively grow and master their business. This is more than theory. This is entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs with top Seattle business leaders who have been where you are volunteering as coaches and mentors in the Accelerator program. Because the hustle will only get you so far. The next level of success is a team sport. Want to hit $1 million in revenue? Join the club. And now
All
I'm bringing
right.
us. You like that, Craig? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Am I doing okay?
Yeah.
I want to see AI do that. It probably
Yeah.
could. It probably could take my voice and do it. So we're gonna have some fun with hot or not,
Mhm.
and we'll see how you answer these. These are obviously going to be related to AI, which I think we both agree is hot, and it's going to be the way of the world, just like the internet took over the world.
Mhm.
Uh, so hot or not, Craig, AI for even the smallest of businesses to help grow and develop business.
I mean, super hot.
Yeah.
Even to the extent of like what a small business is, I think is being redefined.
Yeah. Well, how would
One
you
thing,
define it? Let's start with that. How would you define what a small business is today?
well, I mean, what it can be, it depends on what you're doing, but I am doing a lot with using AI to support early roles into business development and almost treating it like part of my my creative team for things that I'm working on. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more solopreneur businesses starting to spin up that would never have been possible with before AI came around. We're able to do things. Okay, so right now, just as like an experiment, I've got a project, a company called Creator Engine. So creatorengine.com is a new domain I just bought. It's one of the things I'm starting to kind of build out. And the idea is to basically see how much can I automate what I've done over the last decade and a half. So I am creating this daily mixology tool that's basically going to be an online blog that every day releases a new cocktail recipe along with a photograph
Wow.
and a little story about it, and then post on social media about it. And I've been working on the scripts and the testing and all that, and when it's released, it is going to happen automatically every single day with no human involvement whatsoever. And
Wow.
and that's the type of
I first of all, I want to get that. I want to
yeah.
be on your mailing list, however that looks.
Mm-hmm.
What jumps into my mind is just that concept right there. No matter what kind of business you are, it's content creation. It is, I don't want to say it's simple because it's not simple, but it's simplified.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't any business do something similar?
Yeah. I don't want to overgeneralize, but I think that most businesses that are using outsourced people at, let's say, a certain threshold of salary and below. So let's say like $50,000, $40,000 or below, to do kind of basic email back and forth, assisting, things like that.
Yeah.
A lot of those roles can often be put into the hands of different AI agents. So I tend to use AI the way I might use certain employee or contractor roles that require oversight from someone with better judgment. So in your business, if you were going to hire someone to, like, you're in a sales role, you're working with clients, you probably wouldn't just hire someone off the street or an agent to do like all the sales relationship, everything else, but that you might hire someone to basically come in and do a little bit of traffic management of emails, a little bit of initial qualifying, some things like this. Basically, I am starting to look at how can we solve more of those problems using some type of AI system, because I find AI is a lot like managing a highly educated but slightly unreliable human being. And we've all staffed our companies with highly educated but slightly unreliable human beings, and the systems that work for those human beings sometimes can be adopted to work with AI.
And just to, here's the difference though. AI is not going to show up sick.
That's right.
AI is not going to quit. AI is not going to have challenges in their personal life, and that happens to all of us. So here, the unreliability part can really be fixed as you learn to use it more and more. Here's a quick hot or not for you. Hot or not, utilizing AI, let's just say ChatGPT, to enhance written correspondence, whether that's marketing or just simply an email you're shooting off to somebody.
Hot with the right prompt. So I will say,
okay.
When I just ask ChatGPT to write something for me, it feels like a junior college student trying to show off its vocabulary and wordiness. And so I am constantly having to dial back ChatGPT on its sales. Like, it feels too salesy. It is putting in too many adjectives. It's spending too much time trying to hype things up, and it is using more complex language than I like. So I have a couple prompts that I am constantly using. One of the simplest, the one I use over and over again, is write this at a high school graduate level.
Yeah.
So keep it simpler language. I tell it to not be salesy. I have to keep dialing it back. I can tell very often when someone is using ChatGPT with just on autopilot, because there's kind of this overly enthusiastic tone that it starts to take on that I've just started to really feel familiar with. But that doesn't mean that's all it can do. It just means that's kind of is the default temperature for how it tends to write. So if we can be more specific about what we're asking it to do and dial it back, we can get some really great things.
It's funny. I just wrote an email. It's going to be an introduction, and it's actually to somebody you and I both know, because I really feel that this person's business is really beneficial to my clients, and so I want to do this introduction. And so I wrote it, and it was so funny because normally I would have labored more on it, but I just wrote it. And then I sent it to ChatGPT, and I said, look, I want you to improve this. I want you to check the grammar. I want it to be professional, yet still heartfelt. And it was amazing. And I think the word heartfelt really helped, because it was amazing what it did. It really, in a sense, didn't change. And I asked it to write in my style because it knows my style. And so that's the place that I think a lot of business leaders, business owners can start utilizing that help. Because I'm going to tell you, Craig, you probably as well as I have read a lot of terribly written emails, right?
Yep.
From people who are smart, they're intelligent, but the emails are bad. And so here's an opportunity to say, this is what my message is going to be. Take what I wrote and make it in this way. And then you can quality control it and make it sound more like you, or take out whatever. But I think I would just say this. I think it would be negligent for business leaders and professionals not to up their correspondence and communication game because they're too lazy to learn how to use AI. I hate to put it that way, but that's kind of what I think.
I don't think that I write an email more than 2 paragraphs these days, or I do not throw it into Chat GPT or something else and just have it do a polish for me. And
Right.
and actually the great thing is sometimes I can be really messy, and I can just basically do this kind of like flow of thought where I have a messy bit in my first paragraph and a messy bit in my third paragraph, and they're related. And when Chat GPT does a polish, it just brings it all together in this more coherent place.
Right.
It's really, really amazing. And also, it's just it doesn't have the human judgment. It doesn't know what I intend to do, so it doesn't remove me from the equation for being responsible for vetting what I'm sending.
So what happens to the person listening to this who's running a business? Let's say they have 10, 15 employees and they're busy doing what they do, selling their widgets or producing their widgets or professional services, whatever, and this just seems overwhelming. It just seems overwhelming. What are some things you can say to that person to help assuage that concern?
I mean, I think first of all, I would find a place to start feeling comfortable to start playing with it. I would try to. There's a lot of people right now that feel nervous about AI without engaging with it, and kind of a panic around what's happening without necessarily having any connection with what's happening. So different people learn in a different way. There are people really great at ideation. There are people who are really great at execution. There's people who are really good at follow through. Like, everybody's gonna have a slightly different relationship with AI. And kind of the crazy thing is, AI can sometimes supplement the stuff that we're not as good at. And if I were someone that felt concerned, I would try to create a sandbox in my life that did not put things that were crucial to me at risk that I start playing with. So I might, first of all, I would definitely get a Chat GPT 4 Pro account. So I'd be paying the $20 a month to open
which
AI.
I do.
Yep.
From your suggestion, I did that. Yes. And I'm happy I did.
Absolutely. Because you notice the difference. So first of all, right there, $20 a month is kind of the sandbox to start playing with it. And then I would start using some lower risk areas to start having it work on, whether that's in business, have it try writing an outline for a letter, something I need to do, or maybe it's at home for something I need to plan for, like a kid's birthday party, something like that. Try to start using it, watch it fail. You'll either come back and be amazed at what it's done, or you'll be annoyed at what it's done. But either way, push it a little bit more, play with it, ask it some questions, like kind of pretend you are texting with a friend or talking with a friend that's behind that computer, as opposed to an AI. Because the way ChatGPT has been trained and the way it works, it actually does work as if you're talking with a human being. So ask, can you plan out my child's birthday party for such and such? It'll come up with a list. That list might be really impressive. It might feel really well organized, but not be yours. And then come back and say, well, she doesn't like chocolate cake. And also we want a theme that's going to be ponies and something else. And it'll rewrite everything. And once you start a little bit of back and forth and start to realize that, oh, this is an assistant I can use. This isn't something that's going to take over my life. This is basically a tool I can use Socratically, the way I might bounce this off somebody else. And it really opens things up.
Yeah, I know that when I first started, one of the things that I did is I asked it to create a very short children's story for my grandchildren that I could read, and I put in their names, and I put in a dog and a dinosaur and all of that, and it was pretty amazing. And I think that's really what got me going, is just trying some things that I hadn't thought of it in this way, non-dangerous. When it fails, you're going to learn from it. So I think that's a really great way of saying it. What are, we're talking a lot about GPT, Craig, and I know Google has Bard out there, and everybody's going to be coming up, and we're going to be flooded with a whole different variety of things. What are some AI tools that people may not have, that's different from ChatGPT, that people are still using in their business, but may not even think of them as AI?
Gosh, I'm not, well, I mean, so first of all, Google, just the autocomplete in Google. You ever start to type something into Google and it autocompletes with
Yes.
what you might want to do, or auto-completing? Those are like really basic forms of
Yeah.
language AI.
I was thinking the same thing. Yes.
Yeah. Your system that's telling you when you have to be at a meeting or something like that. These are all things. There's actually one tool that just came up yesterday. This is actually something very much AI. I'm actually trying to find the name of it, but I think it's Pictory. Pictory basically is a automatic video editor that you throw your videos into to pull out clips. So Dan, this is something you might just try. Throw in a recording of this conversation into Pictory and just see what happens. Lets you edit out clips using just typing language. And what's going to happen is more and more of these little things are going to start coming out. And I have this huge belief that it's better for someone who's concerned about this to start playing in a sandbox that's safe rather than just like avoiding it until they're kind of pushed into it by something really critical for the business.
I love that playing in the sandbox is safe.
Exactly. I would hate to be learning this stuff under a gun, under deadline, where my business income is at risk. And that may be coming for a lot of us. We're not there yet. So take advantage of the opportunity to learn in a less stressful environment around fun.
Before we go to break, and maybe this would be a good segue, into some of the things we're going to talk about later. But I got to believe that young people, and I'll just say people under the age, let's just say 22, so college age, who are going to be learning this and understanding it, there is a career out there to help people who don't want to learn it, so they can either be hired as a W-2 employee or maybe hired as an entrepreneur to just be the AI manager. Because you remember, Craig, back in the day, if I would have said you're an IT manager or you're a CTO, nobody knows what that means. Back in 1991, there were no CTOs or IT experts. That meant absolutely nothing. I can envision a day, can't you, where you have an AI expert, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and in a lot of ways, just like you have creative experts, different things like that, we've got artists in all of our large corporations doing branding work and design and everything else. And you wouldn't think of that as like this really core business activity, except it is. The ability to communicate with people and like create stuff in parallel with AI, to be able to figure out what AI needs, to know how do we protect ourselves from AI. That's an incredibly important job coming up. And yes, it's going to fall to people that are making their mistakes now and learning, because I think what Mark Twain, I'm not sure who said this. It was either Mark Twain or someone in Warren Buffett's organization. Basically, good judgment comes from bad experiences. Bad experiences come from bad judgment. And so basically, like I think the shorter way of saying that is like good judgment comes from bad judgment. We make bad judgment, we make mistakes, and that's how we have the wisdom to learn how to be better next time.
Well, it would be bad judgment for us to skip our next commercial to talk a little bit about our corporate sponsors. So we're going to take a short break to hear from those sponsors. And when we come back with our guest and co-host, Craig Swanson, we're going to dive into his crystal ball. I know normally we do plead the fifth, but we're going to do some crystal ball things. So don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors, Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, BC Fitness Studio, Port Ludlow Resort, and Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show. So, Craig, we're going to dive in for our end here, our last segment, talking a little crystal ball. And you and I are very positive about what AI can be. One of the concerns I have, and I'd really like you to dig in and tell me how you see this, is that there are bad people out manipulating AI for bad reasons. We tend to focus on the positive. We tend to focus on business and all of the positive things. But there are bad people out there who can take your voice or my voice or anybody's voice, a political candidate's voice, a celebrity or an athlete's voice, even image, and doctor them up to the point that it sure makes it sound that this person said that because that's their voice or that's their, it takes it even beyond the sound bites. So how do we know? I guess I'll use this to plead the fifth. How do we know what we're seeing is real anymore?
I don't know. I mean, there's this overlay of skepticism that really comes into play. So, I mean, like as an example, in our family, we have started to come out with certain phrases or certain cues that if something really important happens and I need to call my wife, or if Wyatt needs to call, my son needs to call one of us because we need cash or help on something, some way of proving that that voice on the other end that sounds a lot like the person that we know to be is who they say they are. Because
wow, no, I've never heard that. I think it's ingenious. It's
Mhm.
sad. It's sad that we'd have to do that because before I could just, if I was talking to you on a phone, I'd know that's your voice, that's mine, and you're hearing it from the horse's mouth. Now we don't know anymore. So having a little bit of a kind of a clandestine type of a situation where you say, this is our code word for the family, and this means it's us. Nobody else knows that.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you've noticed this. Have you noticed there's been an increase in banks warning us about fraud? And have you noticed that the amount of spam we're getting for spam and text we're getting for people like trying to pretend they're from a bank or from other parts of our company, that is increasing in part because human beings can just like write up a series of scripts and it just goes like wildfire, as opposed to one person having to figure it all out. It's and it's going to get worse before it gets better. We're just going to enter this new area. A lot of it has to do, remember they were starting to teach cultural awareness around news in schools. I think that kids growing up today have a greater understanding than maybe their parents did that what you see on the internet might not be true. And there was this period of time where grandma and grandpa would believe something because it was in print or because they would show up, and like there's just kind of this overlay of skepticism that is with a certain generation now. And I think that is going to start even encroaching into verbal conversations and into video. I'm talking with a face that looks like you, Dan, and sounds like you. But there is technology.
I'm gonna rip my face. Yeah. Well, and that's the part about this that is to me disturbing and really tragic, because we look at AI and what it really can mean, not only for businesses, but people in their personal lives, to make things easier, to remedy problems and find solutions. It's incomprehensible, but it also is incomprehensible what can be done by people who don't have our best interests in mind. And so I that's the one part that I don't have an answer to, and I'm not sure that you do, other than we have to find a way. And it seems like human intelligence will always seem to come up with a way. What do you know though about artificial intelligence that's meant to figure that out? I've got to believe that there are tools out there that are ferreting out, saying, hey, you know what, that's not real. Where are those on the landscape?
I mean, they're happening. There's a big increase in people needing for authentication. We're probably going to start seeing increases in improving, we say, who we are. There'd be a lot more places where, as I'm trying to do something, I'm going to need to prove my identity in some way that's going to get increasingly annoying. And here's actually kind of the crazy thing about that. CAPTCHAs. So like CAPTCHAs, where you have to type in something to prove you're human. So first of all, it's like they're getting harder and harder and more complex and weirder because AI is actually better at answering a lot of those. Here's the crazy thing. A lot of CAPTCHAs exist to teach AI systems stuff that we're still struggling with. You notice for a period of time that we were getting a lot of CAPTCHAs with house addresses or license plates, and you're supposed to identify the numbers.
I haven't seen. Yeah.
Or CAPTCHAs are asking you to identify the bicycles or the buses
or
things like
those,
that.
And I have to go, man, I got to put my glasses on. I'm not sure if that's a bicycle or not. I don't know.
Well, one of the reasons why that's coming up is you can see what they're struggling with to help AI figure out. So that is like one way of starting to teach some of the auto driving systems for cars, where they're basically starting to put up
Oh,
images to have human beings. So captures are not just there to prove that we're human. We're actually
interesting.
using this proving we're human to actually start working on trying to educate an AI system in the back end, other things that we're trying to get to learn.
Wow.
Oh,
Did you get this is real time, folks. Oh, that's right. I've got it too. The emergence that's right. We didn't think about this as we were recording. I knew
Dan,
that was
I knew that was coming too. I apologize. I lost your audio because we had that national alert thing that just came through.
Oh, yeah. You know what? And I got it. Look, I got it. So this is so funny. We couldn't, this will not be edited out. I love this. Because this was really, in a sense, it's a form of AI, isn't it? We had we didn't even think, I got the notice this morning and I knew it was coming. I didn't even think about this as we were recording, but here it was. Talk about communication. It went on my phone, on my iPad, and on my watch. And this is, I just love that it just happened during our show. We have only a few minutes left, so we've been notified of a potential emergency. Now we know how to deal with it. You know, one of the things that I'll talk to people about, and I find interesting, is we'll hear something like, you know, plumbers and electricians, you know, they're you know, the AI, they're never going to be replaced by AI, right? However, those plumbers and electricians in those types of jobs better understand how to use AI for the betterment of the work that they do in person. And I look at so many different hands-on types of, you know, I'm a golfer. I'm an avid golfer. I teach golf. I do a lot of different things around that. There is so much AI around the teaching and improvement and building of metrics and things like that. If I don't know how to do that, let's just say I'm a golf a teacher, an instructor for a trade. If I don't know how to leverage it, somebody else is, and I'm going to lose my job to AI, but not to AI, but to the person who knew how to use it. And I think I want to end on this. I think that's an important thing, that yes, some jobs may never go away, but because of AI and technology, the person doing the job better know how to do it, because those who don't won't have jobs anymore.
Exactly. You know, back in 2000, when the web was first coming out and the dot-com boom, you know, we might have been talking about what things are going to go out of business or not go out of business. Oh, I will never be replaced by a website or by the internet. And yet, regardless what business you're in, how many of us have a phone that has complete access to the internet? And how deeply embedded is that? Whether I'm a gardener or whether I am drawing blood or whether I am, you know, a massage therapist, that phone, that internet connectivity, all of those things are basically part of my practice, even if my core practice still requires a human being and human hands and, you know, human empathy.
Yeah. Well, Craig, this has been fun. I always enjoy talking to you no matter what. And I thought this was a great conversation to have today. We had a situation where our guests couldn't make it. And so this turned out to be a really fun conversation. I hope it was for everybody else. Craig, I know I'm just going to give you the chance to spout EO Accelerator one more time. As we go out, how people who might be interested after hearing my wonderful ad read, how do they get a hold of you?
So for anybody so there's both EO Accelerator and EO. So EO is an organization for Seattle area entrepreneurs doing over $1 million a year in revenue, wants to be part of a community of fellow entrepreneurs. It's like our connection of fellow people, and that is at seattleeo.org. And then we have something called EO Accelerator, which is for business owners that have not yet reached that $1 million a year mark and are looking for a community to help them grow and figure out how to run their business to get to that place. And people can find out more about Accelerator at seattleaccelerator.org. There, if you right there we go.
Right there. That's the right. There you go. That's the right one. Because the other one's a shrimp tank, which they should be listening to as well. Well, Craig, thanks a lot. It was so much fun to have you on for your expertise today. Everyone, please make sure to check out all the replays of shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle and wherever you get your podcasts. We've named those all off before. Wherever you get them, that's where you can find the Seattle Shrimp Tank Podcast. Our next show is hopefully going to be live streamed. We will see. It's whenever I get my desktop back. But if that's the case, our next show will be next Wednesday, October, I believe that's going to be October the 10th. And my co-host will be Linda Popke. In the meantime, be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond, and the